welcome to the Doppelganger podcast. This is
Hello.
Elise and
Um, the cute one with glasses.
yeah, talking.
So today we are going to be talking about doppelgangers, particularly in media.
and particularly more what they mean and yeah, where you can find them in books and movies.
Yeah. So, what is a doppelganger?
Well, a doppelganger can be multiple things, especially if you look for answers in the media or in movies. It can be the same person who has two sides. It can also be another person who looks exactly like you or have physical appearances that looks exactly like you. And therefore, the term duality is also pretty important when you're talking about this, because duality is kind of two sides of the same coin, because it's how you portray yourself on the outside versus how you are on the inside in some cases, but in other cases, it's also just two different sides of the story.
Yeah. So, that is kind of cool. So, what would your doppelganger be? Because, what kind of personality would your doppelganger have?
I don't know. Probably like a monkey crawling on the curtains. I don't know. Something like that.
I think my doppelganger would be like, I don't know, someone like who I don't really know. Like, who had like 4 girlfriends and tons of cats.
I like
and
that.
Like, it would be a very harmless doppelganger.
I like that.
With doppelgangers and harmlessness, let's take one who isn't so harmless. For example, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
So basically, in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll is this renowned, great scientist doctor dude, and he like makes this serum because he really wants. He has these desires, which are, by the way, never mentioned what are, and I personally think his desires are
sketchy.
And that too, but also his immense need for cheese.
I get that. Like, I have those desires too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, very relatable, but he wants to get rid of these desires from himself and, like, put them over in a separate person because they don't fit, like, what he wants to show the public. So he accidentally, makes these two, basically he turns himself into, like, 2 people, where, one of them, Mr. Hyde, kind of takes over at night, and he also kills someone. Yeah. So that kind of sucks.
And also, in this case, it can be like, that can be talked about schizophrenia, because he's the same person with 2 different personalities, or like a split personality, not 2 different persons. People. So it's not a doppelganger, someone who looks like you. It's more like a doppelganger as 2 different sides of you.
No, because technically the story, it speaks of how Mr. Hyde actually looks different than Dr. Jekyll.
I get that, but I think it's meant as, this is only like how I, understand it, but I think it's meant as he looks different in like the personality. He has a different face than Dr. Jekyll because he has those needs that Dr. Jekyll doesn't really project or doesn't have,
That does make sense, but they also specifically talk about how people can't, like, recognize his face. As soon as they no longer are looking at his face, they cannot describe it, which is kind of interesting, which, like, it kind of moves over into this science fiction type of thing.
Yeah.
More than actually, portraying any sort of mental illness. So yeah, but that is very interesting, and this very much speaks of this doppelganger concept.
Also the
But
duality term.
yeah, exactly. But it isn't super well, it isn't super harmless because he definitely kills someone,
Yeah.
which is that great.
But like, if
So
you look at someone who's not like, because in the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he turns into a person that's like not necessarily evil, but not good either.
yeah,
But if, for example,
This
we look
has-
at superheroes today, like Spider-Man or Batman, it's a different case there because they try to help people and they turn into another person, not by drinking an elixir or something like that, but because they want to be a hero and they can't be in the normal bodies, if that makes sense.
yeah, exactly. But that's also like a picture of the current times, whereas Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is a picture of the Victorian era, where they very much spoke about how, it wasn't really allowed to have the desires, whereas in today it's actually okay to have these desires. So
Yeah.
the concept of the doppelganger is much different. Because we speak much more of our, for example, sexual desires,
Yeah.
or sometimes even violent desires, where you can kind of joke about that.
Yeah, but also it can also be seen in the case of Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, how it has evolved during time. Because as you said, we can talk about sexual desires or even violent desires in some cases, but his desires are so out there and so murderous and violent and just psychotic that he can't actually talk about them because everything he does, mostly in the movie, is illegal and just really psychotic because he goes around just having this need to kill people and hurt them.
Yeah, but that's also the interesting part about that story, because in all reality, he doesn't kill anyone, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like those are two different like sides of it, because on one side, in the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, much what they speak of is like these desires that are never really named, but much of them are about sexuality, which we can also see in Mr. Hyde's actions. Actually, unlike Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, Mr. Hyde accidentally murders someone, where Patrick Bateman really fucking wants to.
He also does, if you look at the movie, for example, he does kill a lot of people. But then it can also be discussed whether or not it's because he thinks he murders them, because he's never really caught. So, just as...
No, but if you remember, in the end of the movie, it is shown that those murders never actually happened, because he speaks with his lawyer who just had like lunch with the dude he thinks he killed.
Yeah, so it can also, like, if you just look at the movie without the ending, it can be discussed how psychotic he really is, because he thinks he kills them, and if you don't watch the ending, it also seems like he kills them. But he's just so psychotic and has this really big need to kill people that he actually think he does.
Yeah. But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that was all we had today.
I think so too. I think we came around like very good subjects and speaking points. So thank you for this lovely discussion about doppelgangers. It was very nice.
Yeah, and you, dear listeners, can think about how you have experienced doppelgangers. For example, in a book or in a favorite movie, maybe.
Yeah, and what your doppelganger would look like. Because that would be kind of fun.
We will keep on thinking about that too, I think.
Absolutely. We will never stop. Like, it will be a question in like 30 years when we see each other again. It's just gonna be like, oh, did you ever find out what your doppelganger would look like?
Yeah. But bye.
Bye.